There we go. Next time I'm just going to sprint and start yanking cords out of something. Where were we?
I had just asked, I think, about the DUR question. I knew that the report said that, but it seems like with that high dose, it might have been some. Okay, have either one of you done anything in your practice setting, any changes or improvements to help prevent?
I quit doing data review for other stores. I just do strictly our store.
Okay.
This was a part of their offsite order review that they could do between
Right,
stores.
right.
We do it to help other stores, you know, slower stores help busier stores. And like I said, I've worked at busy stores before and we appreciate all the help we can get.
I do know at the store this happened. We've instituted a new policy on reviewing again the actual hard copy of any reconstituted antibiotic or anything for children. And yeah, I've done 6 hours of CE on misfill prevention. And,
We have that in your file,
Yeah.
some certificates.
yeah.
Have you changed your counseling processes at all? I mean, we have a statement, it's on, we have a statement from the patient caregiver that, about the counseling, that there was a comment about it being a high dose, but if that's what the doctor wanted. Have you changed anything to maybe try to catch those things and double check if it looks like it might be too high?
First off, that statement is totally absurd. I can't believe anybody would buy that. That's a pure fabrication. And the huh part really irritates me. I'd never say that. But anyway, as far as counseling, I don't think many changes. That prescription, even though it was exceeded the manufacturer's recommended dose, didn't rise to an alarm or anything. I mean, I catch a lot of errors counseling that are maybe a weekly medication given daily, methotrexate given daily. I catch the eardrops going in eye. A lot of things like that that are obvious and outrageous or egregious. Yeah, I catch all those. I make the patient wait while I get a clarification and go back and look at the whole process. But in this case, that it just didn't appear to be that to rise to that level. And so I did counsel and I did tell her, the caregiver, that, be sure and give it with food because 15 meals of antibiotic for anybody is a lot on the stomach. But yeah, by the time I get it, all the DURs have been cleared. The dose has been verified, corrected. Any clarifications needed have been taken care of. But sometimes I get through and I try to catch them and I always make the patient wait. Sometimes I get mad, but usually they're appreciative.
If I may speak to the actions that the store took following this error, the error occurred in March. And we've talked today some about the peer review process where the store looks at the errors from the previous month and makes an action plan. And I went back and looked at their action plans in April for their peer review. The first of 3 was like a special emphasis on suspensions for children. And during the consultation process, to refer back to the hard copy to see if there was any additional information from the doctor that they want to relate to the patient and use that as a second check. And it looked like all team members that I could tell had reviewed and marked off on that action plan for the month of April.
Thank you.
Crashing the party here a bit. Alicia, I think the panel would appreciate a description of this practice site. If you could, for at 15797, can you just talk about the environment there? Thanks.
All right. So to add clarity about the site that was doing the data review. They were using workload balancing. So store in Fort Smith had recently absorbed a buyout. So they were having an increase in volume. The neighboring location, I couldn't tell you how far is Waldron from Fort Smith?
50 miles.
So 50 miles south is Waldron. They're a smaller volume location, as Bob spoke to. They don't have a drive-through, so more capacity to support with F4s. So that data review was coming from Waldron, where he was F4ing prescriptions as if he was in the pharmacy standing next to the pharmacist in the Fort Smith store. So using the same system, the same information, and data reviewing for that other location.
Dr. Jolly, any questions? Dr. Boone, any questions or comments? Don't have any discussion.
So it could stop there, probably, which is different. I think it'd be lower showing up because it is. Still 22.5 mils for 5 days, you're gonna
Oh, you're right.
an issue there. Done, just wasn't taught. High dose might make you go back and look.
You guys have any concerns with the workflow around the remote verification?
I'm sorry. I'm taking care of that.
You have any concerns around their remote order verification process or?
It's just one of those things where it is good for us that we could tell exactly where the breakdown happened in this instance. But, you know, that's why early on we required that if there was going to be workload balancing, that the pharmacist had to opt into it rather than opt out of it. That makes sense. So, I mean, Dr. Carnation has, you know, kind of had this on his plate to try to help out other stores, and this time something just made it through.
And unless I'm missing something, I could be not so sure if, even if it wasn't remote, it sounded like the workflow wouldn't have been different if the person would have physically been located in the pharmacy. Maybe there's communication, well, the workflow was what the workflow was, right?
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is I can't predict if there'd have been any difference if you usually say that it is safer for more than one set of eyes to see anything because that way you're not blinded, but you're splitting up who looks at which section.
Yeah.
So it's still kind of, you know, two sets of eyes, first being the order entry by technician or pharmacist, and then the second set of eyes is validating that order entry. And we've seen before, Dr. McGrady and I have it, if that's where the breakdown happens, it does carry forward unless there happens to be a catch on counseling. You know, the 15 mils of that antibiotic is a lot for anyone. And that's a larger dose than adults would generally take, but didn't happen.
Supposed to be a half teaspoon and then a quarter.
Yeah, up to a teaspoon generally, and then half teaspoon after that for larger kids.
They still make the 100 milligram per 5, or did they discontinue?
I have to look.
It's there.
Nobody uses it.
10 hours or,
What's that?
and
Sound like
It
they
sounds like
changed
somebody-
processes on suspensions.
and pediatric patients. And I think one of the pharmacists already done 6 hours, so we're good accepting that as long as the board is okay with it.
How many?
10 total, but I think it done 6. All error related. Are you okay with?
I mean, a lot of
accepting
times you
6?
guys are looking for 10 on that stuff,
Yeah.
and because of, I mean, this wasn't 2 bottles that looked identical. A lot of times you're going to get some sort of expense with it as well.
How much time did we spend?
3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, probably 4 hours.
You know, in the
So
past, they just done that.
$1,000 for, no,
That's kind of, I think in the
Yeah.
past when it was an error and there really wasn't, there was some harm, but it wasn't significant. It was normally a $250 penalty
Yeah.
for investigative costs,
Investigative
and it was
costs,
non-disciplinary.
okay.
And on the stores, I mean, I don't think it's every store. I think it's probably the store it was delivered through, don't you? I think the store where the actual filling happened is generally where we would hatch that, but
Okay.
I don't know that you'd hit 3 stores because parts of it happened in 3 different spots.
The error actually occurred. Since there were 3 different stores, would you hit where the error actually occurred?
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, or where the error actually occurred. Which would be 2 stores. I mean, first one was the error occurred on the entry. The second was where the error occurred in delivery, not called on counseling.
Okay, so $250 per store investigative cost, 10 hours of CE. We would be okay with the 6 hours or whatever's already been completed.
Yeah, that
as
can
long as
already
you
apply
guys
towards it.
review it and it's applicable. So that's my motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, have a motion and a second.
That $250
Any further discussion?
That 250 per the 2 stores
For the 3
Per
stores.
store.
All 3
or all
stores.
3?
Is there 3 stores? I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
There's 3 on it.
it's 3 of
It was
them.
input on one, verified at another, and then delivered through a third.
Okay. But there were errors at all 3?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, amend my motion.
Okay.
For each pharmacist.
3 pharmacies. Correct.
Everybody get it? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Investigating costs, non-disciplinary.
All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes.
Now we'll switch out some chairs. Yes.
This one went all the way back when it didn't, but see, it's so
How'd you do it?
tough.
Space to get up.
Erica, that was non-disciplinary. I want to make sure you heard, because Darren asked, so, yeah.
Oh, you too, Brandon. Good seeing you.
She's on.
You're right, on the microphone here.
I gotta get my,
Okay, why don't you sit right here? You'll grab the corner. Hey, we got enough chairs. Look at that.
all right, we're back again. Counselor, you want to tell us who all we're talking to now?
Yes, hello, Erica G, Wright, Lindsay and Jennings. I'm here with Bantu Amara. Did I get that right? All right, good. Bantu Amara, he's one of our pharmacists today. And then we have Ashley Rollins and Alicia Llewellyn. And then at the end there, we have Jeffrey Sharam. And on Zoom, we have Natasha Brica. Maybe that's right, close, hopefully. And then we also have Dwayne Pignon here from Walgreens.
Let's be sure we can hear you on Zoom real quick. Let's test your audio.
Hey, my name is Nastasia, but I go Anna for simplicity.
Okay, good deal. We can hear you well.
Okay.
So we've kind of been through the run through on how this process works. Anna, were you able to hear that earlier?
Honestly, no. I was attending to my 2-month-old girl, so I apologize.
So in this process, generally the way that this works, here in a moment, I'll turn it over to staff to give an overview of kind of the order notice in this event. The most important thing for all of you individually is that at the end of our conversation, the board is going to have some suggestion for what action they want to take. And for you, you can either agree or disagree with that action. It's not something you have to do right here and now. Whatever the board suggests, we will reduce to writing and actually deliver it to you for feedback. If you agree, we go forth with whatever it is that they've suggested. If you disagree, it means it would basically push it to a formal hearing at a later date. With that, Anna, you can't or might not be able to see, but I'll try to explain. On the screen, it's going to be on the left-hand side of this table. Like I'm waving here. If it seems like there's a delay in my video, maybe yours as well. On this side of the table, we're all staff members here at the board. Myself, Dr. Brenda McCready, who is our assistant director, Miss Ashley Vales, who is our legal counsel. And on the other side of the table, we have 3 of our pharmacy board members, Dr. Clint Boone, Dr. Lenore Newsom, who's the chair of the informal committee, and Dr. Brian Jolly, who are decision makers today. With that, if it's okay, I will kick it over to staff to give us an overview. Did I miss something?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
All right. Ms. Bales?
Right. This is one investigation. This is the earlier incident, same patient. This happened in November 26, 2023. So we're still talking about patient A, a 4-year-old child. This occurrence, she was prescribed amoxicillin 405 with orders to give patient A 500 milligrams by mouth twice a day for 10 days. Technician Davis, while working at the store 7234, input the prescription for amoxicillin into the system with the incorrect dosage. The wrong dosage directions were entered into the computer as, I'm just going to read this, SW and G patient A 625 ml PO for 10 days, discard remainder. The prescription was then returned to the queue for the pharmacist review and verification. Pharmacist Bricka reviewed and verified the input prescription for another Walgreens 21576 and did not discover technician Davis's dosing error made during the input process and subsequently sent the prescription to the filling queue with the wrong dose and directions. Pharmacist Amare overrode the DUR that indicated drug dosage condition encounter that described the DUR as renally cleared drug, check SIG quantity and day supply, perform manual DUR. The dose of 15 ml may exceed the highest maximum single dose for all patient populations. The override was completed at Walgreens 21576. The prescription was then filled at another Walgreens store 7234 by pharmacist Sharam, who verified and dispensed the prescription and counseled the patient's mother. Patient A, the 4-year-old child, was dispensed amoxicillin 4 milligrams 5 ml with orders to SW and G patient A 625 ml by mouth for 10 days, discard remainder. The patient realized after arriving home, or the patient's parent realized that the medication, that the prescription didn't look right, and called Walgreens, and she did not dispense the medication at that time. Okay, who wants to start first?
I think if it's okay, we'll start with Dr. Amara. He can, since we've got several different pieces here, if you can tell your part of the involvement in the prescription.
Okay, thank you. My name is Bantu. I have an accent, so I hope you'll be patient to listen to me. And I would like to tell what I did. Perhaps I don't exactly remember because it is almost 9 months old prescription, but I'll tell what I normally do when I process the prescription. Actually, there are 2 steps. The first one is drug entry step and the clinical review step. And I was here as a clinical review step. So when the script comes on the screen for clinical review, what I normally do is I look at the age and then go to the product. If it is amoxicillin and if it is a pediatric patient, what I do next is check the weight of the patient. And if it is in pound, I change it to kilograms, and then calculate the maximum allowable dose. And then I move on from that, from that step. So when I look at the order here, I was wondering how I missed the 6.25 PO, which doesn't actually say daily or twice day or anything like that. And I don't know what I was thinking at the day. I should have really recognized that there is no direction as far as the frequency is concerned. So that was really my mistake. Normally, that's not what I do. When I try to calculate the day of supply, normally I read the instructions, the direction, because without that, I cannot calculate the day of supply. And as far as overriding the alert is concerned, since the volume that is given is 6.25 mil, and the alert says 15 mil is high dose, then really 6.25 is less than 15, and maybe I have not considered that a big deal, so I let it go. And the good thing is the patient parents have captured it, and nothing bad happened. I am happy about that. And also, I appreciate the parent to catch the mistake, because it really saved all of us from a regret. And then if you have questions, I can clarify more.
Is there anything that you've changed about your typical practice since this case has occurred, or any sort of actions that you've taken afterwards?
Well, except being very adamant or strict on following the steps, I mean, it is clear forward. I should have followed my routine of doing things. So that's what I did. But later on, of course, I tried to learn about how to correct medication errors, and I have taken a CE for that. That's all I did.
Okay. And how many hours was the CE that you've taken?
2 hours, particularly on pediatrics medication error.
Thank you very much.
Hey, are you the next person?
Probably Dr. Sharon. There you go.
Hello, my name is Jeff. At the time, I was the pharmacy manager of the store. I was not currently the pharmacy manager at the time that the complaint came to me. So I can't speak to a lot that's happened on the back end, but I definitely was the pharmacy manager at this time. My part of this is I'm the responsibility once it has printed. So I'm the actual pharmacist that's in the store on that day. So the prescription was printed. I'm responsible for reviewing the prescription. Prescription was reviewed. We just double check NDCs match, names match on leaflets. And then as we were told previously, they go into our bag system for when the patient arrives. Patient arrives, I'm in charge of counseling. And like they said earlier, honestly did not remember this case. It was old enough that it didn't spark in my mind that I actually remembered the exact thing that happened on that day. So I cannot speak to the day. I can speak to what I think happened and what I try to do on counseling. So I do agree that the most important part on patient safety, because as a pharmacy manager, that's what my charge is. I'm responsible from the beginning to the end of my pharmacy to make sure that we get patients in and out in a timely manner, in a safe manner, and safe being more prevalent than timely. So that's my goal. And sometimes I do great, sometimes I fail. In this instance, something got through that should not have got through, and it was my responsibility to catch it on counseling. I try to do my best with counseling. I try to make sure that we go over directions, that we tell people what to look out for. what are common interactions, what are common side effects, storage requirements, glass bottles, especially with antibiotics, because we break so many of them. Just the things that have bit me over the years that we try to emulate into our current practice of counseling. Because what I did when I first started with Walgreens, I think over the years I've refined and honed things and got better because I made mistakes and I try to learn from them so that I don't have them in the future, so that hopefully I never can have to do this again or cause harm to someone. So my job on that was the counseling out. It seems like it was missed, or it absolutely was missed. Patient called back. I assume it would have still been me if it was that same day. We put a stars in. I can see the stars on my side, so we reported our error, and we dispensed the correct directions verbally, not on a label form. So, and again, I can ask any questions, but my knowledge on the exact event is low. I have not talked to the patient either, as you were asking previously.
How quickly after dispensing it, did the oral counseling take place and say, hey, this is supposed to be twice a day?
I don't know because it was so long ago, but I would assume that most med errors that are caught by the patient that aren't taken are usually caught pretty immediately just from my practice setting. So I would assume it was probably within an hour, but that's just only a guess from what I see throughout my career so far with Walgreens, most careers of pharmacists. The most errors caught by patients that are not ingested are caught very quickly and called to us in a pretty quick manner.
Did we have a statement from the patient, Dr. McCready or Ms. Dales?
We had,
Previous case.
yeah,
She commented on both.
Says that this is
Yeah.
the second.
it was one
At the same
complaint that
time.
referred to both incidents, and I think that's probably going to be under the other tab. But I can pull it if you want a paper copy.
It's not as detailed as the other.
Yeah, the other one is a little bit more detailed than this one.
I was just trying to get a sense of how long before it was corrected, but maybe.
I don't think it said.
Between the,
I believe it was before the first dose was taken. So from my knowledge is that a dose was not taken and that it was corrected, but that there was no return to the pharmacy. So I don't believe another label was generated. I believe it was just done as they revert, like on the phone, like, okay, this is the error, we'll report our error, but this is the actual corrective, what you would do.
I believe it's clarified in the STARS event that the team documented what the resolution was, and I'm happy to pull that information up and I can report back with the turnaround time.
Okay. That's okay.
I guess my question would be, there's a little over 4 months between these two incidences. What changed in that time? I know we heard some testimony about what changed after the second time, but what changed after the first time that this happened?
So I can speak for a little bit of it. I have transferred stores, so I haven't been there. I moved in about February. So individually, I can't say how we changed everything. So I can say on a broad form, as we were talking about, this is when we initially started a buyout. So we were trying to take on more volume, but be safe. And so my big thing to my staff is that we had a big spanner is you got to breathe. We got to slow down. We can't be unsafe. We can't just try to, let's go as fast as we can. We've got to slow down, be precise. If people have to wait, it's not what we want, but in certain situations, that's what we got to do. So my big push to my team for safety is that we got to catch our breath. We got to slow down. We got to do this one at a time. So I can't say that I can have an exact corrective action, how we do a handbox like that. I can say on a personal side, but on what I push to my pharmacy, that was more what I was pushing to my pharmacy is a slow down. Let's take one thing at a time, handle one fire at a time. And that's how you do work of safe pharmacy, in my opinion. The safe pharmacies work when you get your team to catch their breath and that we don't cut corners, because pharmacies that cut corners create mistakes.
Alicia, do you have anything to add from the store?
You can say it was, the STARS event was entered in, and that team did go through their monthly peer review, and it did look like all team members marked off on it. This event was not specifically lined out in that peer review the next month. So they had quality steps that they were working on as a team. This exact event was not specified. So if there was intentions in there, I'm not aware of what it was.
Like, so on a personal side, I can talk to like what I tried to do and learn from the event. I tried to, so initially on like a data review is really for me personally always been just make sure names match drugs. So does name match name, does drug match drug? And I didn't really look at directions because we had always said that, well, that's usually called in the first part. To data review is not really a direction finding, at least for me. That's no longer the case. I think it's an easy way because you can tell like I have 5 bottles, that may be wrong. Or I have 7 bottles of antibiotic, or I have 4 pills in the bottle of lisinopril. Did we screw up something here and look? But to try to get as a more be safe, you have to do things the same way all the time. If you do it here and there, it doesn't work. So I'm trying to do better at taking a specific set and to just look at these quickly. Do they make sense to me at that? Because it just adds another layer of a catch, in my opinion. So on a data review, instead of just looking at that, can you just look at it real quick and read it? Does it make sense? Is there a typo? Does it look like we did something wrong? And it doesn't take a lot of time, but it's a good way, I think, my practice to institute a catch. And that's something I try to do now, is to institute another layer of trying to catch something that could go wrong out.
But would you say the corrective action plan from the previous case, wouldn't it be applicable to this one as well? As pediatric, it was a liquid.
Correct. This one was the first one.
Right, but
Yes.
what y'all did after the second one is also gonna
Yes.
apply to this scenario too.
Yes,
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would also say the technician that made the error, there is a statement within the STARS event. The end of the STARS event process is an action plan moving forward. And the technician who had made the error did have a statement in there saying that they were going to slow down be more intentional about typing and double check it before they send it to the pharmacist to data review.
And I appreciate you offering to share the STARS data. I'm kind of a stickler for, I think internal reporting systems should remain internal. Otherwise, it defeats the purpose of promoting reporting and things like that. So I would never ask for that because I think that should be kept within the organization. But thought I had one more, but I can't remember what it was.
You have any questions after that?
No additional questions.
Okay. Issue.
You haven't heard from the pharmacist on Zoom.
Hi.
We're trying to avoid looking at the Zoom screen after.
We all have PTSD, don't we?
Okay, Anna, your statement, please.
Simply, I do acknowledge that I did a mistake. I'm a very meticulous pharmacist. I do double check my work twice, but for some reason, that mistake did happen, and I just apologize for it. And hopefully, moving forward, I would do better at just do better at not allowing these mistakes to happen again.
This prescription had a DUR override that you did according to the documents in the audit trail. Thank you, John. Is there anything you would do different or that you are doing differently now when you see a DUR come up?
Dr. McCready, that was
here. Okay. My mistake.
With asking if there's a different action you would take when you see this DUR come up now.
Yeah, I should have read the directions. That's the most important thing. I just don't know how I missed it. That's what I do regularly. But as of very days, for some reason, I have missed the whole point. Otherwise, I should first check with the instruction. What does it say? If I don't understand it, I have the option of sending it back to the store. So I could have done that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I.
My apologies. Thank you.
Anyone else?
3 stores, similar to the last one. or
Stores
just
two
two?
this time.
Three farms.
But a second offense, so even though we're out of chronological order here.
The patient did not take the medication.
Same patient, all different pharmacists. Similar story.
What was our determination again on the last one around the investigative cost?
3 to 4 hours.
Yeah, we said like 4 hours.
Right, what was our, what was our deciding factor on when to do
Because
that?
in the past, we've always done some sort of like $250 rather than invest, and then set it as investigative cost.
Okay, they could,
I think 10 hours each, but then a higher fine since there's, no, to me, nothing changed between November and March that could have. Granted, we're out of chronological order here, but if we'd have made some change, that corrective action plan would have gone in place in November after this and might have saved March from happening.
non-disciplinary. What are you thinking?
I'd say 500,
Per store,
yeah, per store.
investigative costs? Yep. Dr. Curley, Dr. McCready, any concerns with changing the investigative cost on this one versus that one? Okay. So is that, you want to put that in motion?
That's motion.
All righty, we have a motion by Dr. Berman and a second by Dr. Jolly. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes. Thank you.
So we'll reduce it to writing and send it to you. All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Safe travels. For those that are traveling.
This one is Lindsay's, isn't it? This one's Lindsay's, isn't it? No, mine.
We are, no, you
Sorry about the technical difficulties. Apologize for that.
And the associated trauma.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yep. Get back on the road and back to reality tomorrow.
While you were gone.
I didn't cook. But he got all on his own. Yeah, but I've got.
Ready, Counselor? Good morning. If you guys want to tell us who you are, I will introduce everybody at the table and talk a couple things about the procedure for today.
Hey, Dr. Kirtley, I'm Stephanie Rapert, pharmacist.
Amy Flanagan, pharmacist.
Okay, so here at this front table, we've got kind of two sides of it. On this side of the table, we're all staff members here at the board offices. Myself, Dr. Lindsay Tankersley is one of our inspector investigators. Ms. Ashley Bales is our legal counsel. And then we also have Dr. McCready sitting over here on the side, and we may have another inspector to come in or out for the meeting. To your right and my left are three of our pharmacy board members who are decision makers here today on this appearance. We've got Dr. Clint Boone, Dr. Lenore Newsom, who's the chair of our informal committee, and Dr. Brian Jolly. The way that I generally explain this, I'm gonna make sure, all right, it's under tab number 5 for us. The board members have just been provided basically the same copies on their electronic tabs of what you have in front of you. In a moment, I'll turn it over to our staff to give an overview of the documents and the findings that we had, and the board members are going to want to have a conversation back and forth with you. At the end of the conversation, at some point, they're going to come up with a suggestion for some type of action of what they would want to do. The most important point of the day is that you can either agree or disagree with that. You don't have to do it sitting here right now. Whatever they propose to us, we would generally reduce to writing and send it to you so you can actually review what type of order or letter or whatever they indicate would be, to give you some time to give us feedback. If you agree with it, we go forth with whatever that result is. If you disagree, it's your chance to say that rather than reach an agreement at informal, you'd prefer to have a full hearing before the board at a later date. Full board, we call this informal. I realize fully it is pretty dang formal anytime you come before the board. But a formal hearing is all 8 board members, court reporter, hearing officer. We swear everybody in as witnesses, and it's just a more formal procedure that looks more like going to court. So I always ask a couple of questions. Do you guys know why you're here today? Do you have any questions about how this works?
Not yet. No.
And that's a good way to put it, Stephanie. If you do at any point have a question about something that's going on procedurally, if you need to take a timeout and y'all need to talk to each other or anything like that, let us know. We're happy to help answer any questions that you have, realizing you haven't sat in that chair. And if you guys need to talk to each other, we can give you a break as well. Okay.
All right, I'm going to start with Dr. Flanagan. You've got order notices of hearing on both, obviously just for guidance for today. The board did receive a couple of complaints with regard to River Road Pharmacy and some prescriptions that were filled. With regard to Dr. Flanagan, there's let's see, 6 patients involved with her filling of prescriptions. Patient A was prescribed Norco 7.5, but actually when it was filled, she got Norco 10 milligrams. And patient B prescribed Norco 7.5, and when it was filled, she was dispensed Norco 10 milligrams. Then another patient C, same thing. Norco 7.5 was what was prescribed, and it was filled for Norco 10 milligrams. Patient D was prescribed Norco 10 milligrams, and he or she received 7.5 milligrams. Patient E was prescribed Norco 5 milligrams. And that prescription didn't include the interval at which she was to dose the medication prescribed. And Dr. Flanagan did not consult with patient E's prescriber to verify the dosing and dispense the medication as follows: take 1 tablet as needed for pain. Patient F was an adult female prescribed Adderall XR 30 milligrams. And that physician prescribed 4 separate prescriptions of River Road Pharmacy on February 6, 2024, with directions to be filled on February 6th, March 6th, April 6th, and May 6th, respectively, 120-day supply. And Dr. Flanagan placed all 4 prescriptions in patient F's profile to be filled on those dates while only 3 were valid. That's with regard to Dr. Flanagan. Now with regard to Dr. Rapert, again, there's 6 patients in here in her dispensing errors. And the first one is patient G was prescribed Norco 7.5, and it was actually filled for Norco 10 milligrams. Patient H, adult female, was prescribed Norco 7.5, and it was dispensed and filled for 10 milligrams. And patient I, an adult male, was prescribed Norco 7.5 and filled for 10 milligrams Norco. Patient J was prescribed 7.5 Norco and filled for 10 Norco, 10 milligrams Norco. Patient K prescribed Norco 7.5 and filled that with 7.5, 200 milligrams and filled for 7.5, 325 milligrams. Patient L was an adult female prescribed Norco 5 milligrams, and patient L's prescription was filled for 7.5 on one occasion, and then another occasion filled and dispensed for 10 milligrams Norco.
Yes.
So I think can you hear me? I think I'm a little bit more familiar with our software. So it might be easier for me to explain what we think happened, well, what we know happened after the board inquired. I think some of you at the board probably talked to our software provider. So on January the 16th, we didn't discover it actually until the board discovered it, but it happened on January the 16th. There was a technician that went into, she didn't do it on purpose, but she, instead of changing an NDC number, like to different strengths of drugs have different generics. And so we dispense the correct NDC. So instead of just changing the NDC to the drug that she was dispensing, she went into the drug maintenance edit file and changed basically the whole identity of the drug. So part of what that did is when we went to fill drugs that were already on file, like for instance, if something had been e-scribed and placed on hold months before correctly, well, that NDC number has now changed because she changed the identity of the drug. So we misfilled it for the new identity, basically. She went in the 7.5 hydrocodone and changed it to not only the name, but she changed everything. She thought she would, I don't know what she thought she was doing, but she basically changed the NDC number for the hydrocodone 7.5 to the 10. And I do have a record of when that changed from our software provider, if you need to see it. You may have it already, I'm not sure. So on January 16th, the drug changed from 7.5 325 to 10 325. And this is in the drug maintenance profile. And also she changed the NDC from the 7.5 to the 10.
When you say she changed it, did she change the NDC number?
She changed it in the drug maintenance on.
She put in the NDC for the 10 325 on the 7.5.
Yes.
325, and then on the 10 Or maybe on the 5, she did it with the 7.5.
We think, we haven't discovered I'm not sure about that strength. The only one I know for sure, is the 7.5. I'm not sure what
There was a misfill,
I think that might have been a true misfill on,
Oh, okay,
on that
okay.
one. But the majority of these and the ones that were most alarming to us, was the fact that someone could actually go in. We didn't realize that you could even do that, go into drug, in that sense has been corrected from our software. People, a tech cannot, I'm not even sure it's wise for a pharmacist to be able to go in and change something like that if they're not familiar with the program, but the techs, there's a block now on that software where they can no longer do that. But we weren't even aware that it had happened until the board made us aware of it. And they didn't know what had happened until we had to do, because we couldn't believe that when they went and pulled the files, the hard copies of the e-scrabs were input correctly and placed on hold correctly. But then when they were subsequently filled after this database change, they were all wrong, even though they were profiled correctly. So, and unfortunately, there were some misfills because of that.
Was there any theft involved?
I'm
Did
sorry?
y'all do a count? Were you able to reconcile drugs with the prescriptions?
We did not do a shrink report, no.
Is that technician still with you all?
She's been, I've been working with her for 15 years or more, probably. Yeah. I do not, I think it was, and we've talked through this with we don't believe at all that that was the issue. We believe that it was, she went to change brands of generic. And so to answer your question directly, no, we did not do a shrink report.
So received a prescription, I guess, prior to this January update.
Yeah.
You placed it on hold or on file.
Mm-hmm.
Entered it for the 7.5, the Norco 7.5.
Yes.
Technician changed the NDC of the 7.5 to the NDC of the 10. So when you went to release the order from being on hold and fill it, spit out a 10, 325 strength for you to fill.
It did.
What about the ones that were the 7.5, what they were filled for, but the prescription was for 325? I'm looking on the order notice of hearing.
Dr. Jolly, I may be able to clarify on A10 and A11, the patient was prescribed 7.5 hydrocodone 200 ibuprofen, and it was filled with Norco 7.5.
Okay.
That was a true misfill. And I actually, I did that one. And I again, didn't realize it until you called it to my attention. So I went back to try to figure out how and why I would have done that. And the only thing I can come up with is this patient had been on the 7.5, 325 hydrocodone. I know this patient very, very well. She's one of my long-term patients, and it was written by a prescriber that I also know very, very well that never writes for hydrocodone ibuprofen. I'm not saying that it was correct. So as it turns out, I did misfill it. But the physician, after talking with her, she didn't even mean, she meant to send the 7.5, 325, the thing that the patient had been on all along. So it was a misfill. She did send the 7.5 hydrocodone ibuprofen 200. And I filled it for hydrocodone 7.5, 325 acetaminophen, which the patient had been on.
And the A12, A13
It
was
is,
same thing, or
no, that was a completely different, that was a true misfill.
that was just a different
Mhm.
misfit? I'm sorry, Dr. Jolly, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, I was gonna ask the same. I was trying to determine, there's a lot listed here, and I was trying to determine of the ones listed, which ones might have been due to the
I
software.
can probably
issue.
tell you
It
which
looks
one
like,
we're
it looks like three that weren't attributable. A11, which was the ibuprofen and
Yes.
acetaminophen mix-up, and then twice on A12, one time with a
Yes.
7.5 and one time with a 10.
And I'm curious, did you guys go back and do a utilization report on these strengths of hydrocodone to see if, because this was just called on random inspection looking.
We actually did that briefly when the inspector was there, but it was pretty vast because and then we had to go back and look at the dates, because when she changed that maintenance file, it looked as though everyone, it kind of did a retroactive.
Yeah, I've seen that, like if you, when you've had to add a new drug or something or change it. I worked in a pharmacy that would put an asterisk beside one because there were two different NDCs of one or package sizes. And if you then went back and reprinted old labels, they would all have an asterisk on them, even though in the computer system it was meant do not choose this one. So it moved it down the list. So I understand that before January 16th, it would make it look like every one of those was filled with the 10-325, but the NDC should match the 7.5. Possibly, or maybe it
It
doesn't.
would only if it was submitted, and you can go back and see the
Actual
EEI
submission,
that was
right.
submitted. Because we've had this happen with physicians as well.
Yeah.
Where if somebody changes some information on a physician,
It changed their whole profile retroactively.
all the way retroactively. And so you've got to go back to the sticker on the hard copy to see what actually went on the hard copy. Because if you change their address, for instance, it's going to change the prescriber's address going back. And so.
So did you guys do an internal hard copy audit on that?
Not that it was so vast. We didn't honestly know what to do. I think the board went through it pretty thoroughly, best we could. And we tried just from the 16th to when you just, I think it was like March. I changed it immediately that day. We did go back and look at those, and
I would like to insert a little context and ask a few questions if possible. As stated, the review of the records was as a result of the two complaints that were filed based on the strength inversions, correct? Okay. And OCL is quite far away from Little Rock. First time I'd ever visited there. Nice. But you were near due on inspection list as well. So we kind of combined those two things, and both very forthcoming during inspection, which was much appreciated. So we did remove the hard copies, and the errors that you'll see in the orders notice of hearings are what we as the board staff accomplished from looking at old stickers, discovering, having about 10 light bulb moments of, oh, that's where this. I do understand Stephanie's, because we had those reactions as well. Did want to ask you a few questions though about the process. I think we can all agree that definition of the drugs were inverted due to that identity change made possibly by the technician. But whenever we went through the process of how that would look on your screen as you went to fill those prescriptions, at verification, would there have been any chance for you to have caught this mistake before they went to the patient?
unfortunately, yes. And
Can you describe that to the board?
I can try. So when the verification screen pulls up two critical pieces of information that we should have caught. One is the true e-scribe with the drug name, strength, name of patient and everything that cannot be modified. That comes straight from SureScripts. And then the second side of the screen would show the drug that we dispensed. And so, yes, I think, I saw that the day that you were there, I don't even know how to.
I don't know how to explain.
I don't know how to
describe it.
explain it. We're not familiar enough with our e-scribing, checking. We just simply, I failed that. I did. I just assumed that when we typically check them. I look through, I know you probably do too, the e-scribes at the end of the day, that are just because our techs do input those and that's sort of our check. So you just assume that the prescription itself was correct. And that was a huge mistake.
So when you were doing the product verification before it was bagged to go to the patient, you had the
I had the
product,
chance.
had the
yes.
product in hand, original script, what
Yes.
was entered and the
Yes,
product.
it was both there in front of me.
Okay, what changes to your practice have you made?
Immediately, we had our software people put a block on where a tech cannot change, and it's a physical block. I mean, they each have their own. I mean, we pharmacists work on our own computers, and techs have theirs. Sometimes the techs share computers, but they're supposed to log in under their initials, and they never get on mine. Do they? Yours?
No.
Yeah, no. So there's a block where a technician cannot go into the drug maintenance file at all. So that,
Straight out, they can't even.
yeah, so that's the biggest thing that we need to do.
Personally, excuse me. Me personally, I look at that e-script more times now.
Oh, me too. Yeah, that was a hard lesson
That happened
learned.
in March.
Yes.
I mean, or right after, because I'm like, I need to look at this when it's input. If I'm input it, then if I go back and I look at it 2 to 3 times that one prescription now, the actual e-scribe that came over. I pray that will help us a lot. And Stephanie's doing that too. We're looking at the e-scribe more.
Instead of just when we place it on hold.
Yes.
Yes, we just assume that once it was placed on hold, it was good and safe and, everything was correct at that point, but
yes,
that wasn't the case here.
Are either one of you the PIC?
I was, now Debbie West, now we have another PIC. I think she took over in July. Yes.
And how are all the patients?
They're good. I've contacted most of them. There were a couple I didn't, the one being on my misfill, the patient that I told you had been my patient for a long time because she has some learning disabilities that would have just not, but I did call the doctor. And I mean, they've been my patients forever. So of course no one was hurt. No one was really even upset, but it makes you feel terrible because they lose a little faith in you.
Does anyone else have any questions or discussion? Or what are we gonna do?
Got a couple
Got
different issues
7.
here. One's kind of,
7 on the first. You mean counting the ones,
yeah,
counting the systems issue, the first one was 3 + 4. 7 and 6.
7, I kind of count as. Got it fixed, yeah.
You mean the ones that were system issue?
Yeah.
Mhm. Kinda count them as one.
7.5, 10, 3. I was saying just to ignore them. Group them together, I guess is what I'm saying.
It's the same error.
That'd be like 3 or 4. Got the A 10, 11 is one, and then 12 is 13 and 14.
And I would mention that each of the systems there, even though generated by the system, are all verified and looked at individually and made a decision where they could have been caught.
Yeah, if it would have been caught even one time on that review, it would have exposed the whole system. I mean, it was, found on random spot check and audit. It is a part of an inspection.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of complaint. We usually don't have people complaining that they're getting too much hydrocodone, so that was a little bit odd.
Mhm.
Yeah, the
Okay.
office was upset. Because that's not what they had prescribed.
Tied in with the
2
normal
trips.
inspection anyway, but
24 hours probably, just takes a while to get there and back. Yeah. Did, on the patients that got the wrong strengths outside of this, that wasn't caught in counseling either? Like this for Stephanie, this A11,
No, and
because she'd been getting that other strength before.
yes, and I think my brain just
Okay.
saw it as, I did call the physician and let her know when this was brought to my attention, and she looked back on her records and, she would tell you the same thing. She
Yeah.
sent the wrong drug. So I guess, I don't know.
But the 12, it wasn't like a refill or anything or ongoing.
Are you talking about A12?
A12 now, which where in 13, they got the higher dose, and then in 14, they got an even higher dose.
So one of those I didn't input or check. I don't remember which one. One of them I did.
I can see like the 5 to 7.5 wouldn't have been a systems issue.
No, I don't think either. I think the only one that might have been a systems issue was the 13, and I would have to look at the date it might not have even been. But if you'll give me just a second, I can. So the one for that was written for hydrocodone 5-325 and filled for 7.5-325 was not a systems issue. It was a true misfill.
Okay.
The second one, I believe, was a systems issue.
Okay, like it copied the prescription and. Yeah, I can see how that one was a 7.510, which may have been the system. Okay.
But A12 was a true misfill.
Okay.
Didn't we have a standard per hour that we had at one point? For investigative costs? I know we did.
I thought at one point we had talked about it's minimally like $100 an hour.
That's what I remember too.
I mean, there's systems issue, but then like for Amy, if you don't have directions, you got to call and get directions on it. Say as needed for pain. I mean, somebody could have taken a whole bottle that day.
I did speak to the patient on council because I'd looked on across her profile and I don't believe she'd ever had any oxycodone. And I discussed with her how she's supposed to take it. Yes, I should have called the physician.
but
I'm not trying to say that at all.
Yeah, but if you
The
didn't
patient
have,
was taken care of, but yes, I should have called them.
but if you don't know how the prescriber intended them to take it, I mean, I could talk to the patient all day long. but-
Yes, yes. Yes, I should have called. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Dr. Kirtley, on that, because that was interesting to me. I mean, of course, things are changing, but if you do have a prescription for, let's just say, take as directed, even on something like that, and you do confirm it with the physician, how do you?
If it has literal, because usually if I see take as directed or use as directed, it's usually like a topical. Like if it's hydrocodone, if it's a controlled
What would you
substance,
do? What would you?
if it's a controlled substance, I'm going to call. Because take as directed,
But then it's an e-scribe, so then would you, I'm asking because I'm truly curious.
Kick it
I don't want
back.
to have, kick it back and ask them to send them more. Okay.
because
Send it out.
you can't establish a day supply for any type of insurance billing or oversight if
Not
you don't
really.
know. Like they say take as directed max of 4 a day, and that's better for me to know than
Kind of
just
like the
take as
insulin doses.
directed.
Yeah, okay.
Because, I mean, you know,
I didn't realize it was against the law, though. I
it's
know
not against the,
it's poor, I mean, I know it's poor patient care and poor, but
Yes.
you can't legitimately counsel a patient if you don't even know how much something they can take. Because it's not marijuana, it's not dose to effect when it has acetaminophen
right.
with it as well. But like, we would see that for a long time on gels and creams and everything else.
Yeah.
You would also argue maybe that it didn't contain the required elements of a prescription without a proper SIG.
I didn't know if all
Especially-
take is directed drugs. I was just trying to.
Yeah.
If you were, I always, my litmus test is if I were a patient that knew nothing about healthcare, well, how would I take it?
Yeah.
But the stores were listed. Yeah. Got a question. for you.
Yes, ma'am.
The store is not charged in the charges.
Not in this one. I can't recall who owns this store now. Is it a investment group or?
It's local. We sold to local.
Okay.
She, her daughter is in first year pharmacy school here.
Okay. So
in
it's a
Memphis.
local person owns it.
It is.
This was your store previously, Stephanie. So y'all got a plan?
Yeah, I think so.
Can you tell us what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just. So, we're gonna require 10 hours of CE around med errors for both pharmacists. 10 hours of CE above and beyond what's required as part of their licensure requirements. And that'll be due by the end of December. And then based on the amount of time, 24 hours, we're gonna do a $2,500 investigative costs. It's gonna split that 1,250 and 1,250. Be consistent with what we've done in the past based on the number of med errors. Non-disciplinary.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Dr. Jolly and a second by Dr. Boone. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any nays? Motion passes.
And that CE can be non-live. So if you go out and find something that's available as a home study, that's fine.
No,
So our legal counsel will basically reduce this to writing as part of a consent order and send it to you ladies for review. If you got any questions, get back with us.
okay. No, it's we're grateful.
Thank you.
Grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Our next appointment is scheduled for 1 o'clock, so we will break until after a meal break. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I know, when I was prepared to tell you guys how great we really are, despite what it shows. We're the only,